Midnight Archives, Episode 1, The Forgotten Trial of Johann Reichardt. Hey guys, let's begin tonight's Forgotten Night story with the injustice trial of Johann Reichardt. Before the story begins, take a moment and like the video, and subscribe if you heartfully like the work I do here. Also let me know in the comments where you guys are tuning in from. Now lay back and enjoy this mystery being revealed. On the night of February 3rd, 1896, a single document crossed the desk of a Bavarian minister in Munich. It was stamped, signed, and quietly returned to the Ministry of Justice before dawn. By sunrise, Johann Reichardt was already a dead man. He did not know it yet, nor did anyone else, except a handful of officials whose names would later vanish from the record. For almost a century, the trial of Johann Reichardt would remain buried inside sealed court archives, classified as an administrative irregularity and then forgotten entirely, until a young archivist opened the wrong box. Germany, 1896, a system under strain. By the 1890s, the German Empire was only 25 years old. The nation was modernizing rapidly, but its political system remained fragile. Industrial unrest was spreading through Bavaria. Trade unions were organizing. Radical newspapers were testing the limits of press freedom. The imperial government's greatest fear was not war, it was instability. Public confidence in the legal system had become a political priority. Every trial was no longer just a trial. It was a performance of order. It was in this climate that Johann Reichardt entered the system. The man. No one noticed. Reichardt was 37 years old, a machinist, recently unemployed, married with one child. He had no political affiliations, no criminal history, no reputation of any kind. On the morning of November 12, 1895, he left his apartment in Munich's Giesing district and did not return. By evening, the body of Karl Weiss, a factory accountant, was discovered behind a rail depot less than 2 kilometers away. He had been beaten to death. Within 48 hours, Johann Reichardt was under arrest. Witnesses would later testify that the investigation felt rushed from the beginning. Police claimed Reichardt had been seen near the rail depot. A dock worker said he heard shouting. Another witness claimed to recognize Reichardt's coat. There was no physical evidence, no murder weapon, no motive, but the city was on edge. The newspapers demanded action, and the authorities needed a suspect. The trial begins. The trial opened on January 7th, 1896, in the Munich District Court. From the first day, the proceedings were unusual. The prosecution was granted extraordinary latitude. Defense motions were denied repeatedly. Witnesses for the defense were delayed, then excluded entirely. Most troubling was the sudden appearance of a new witness on the third day of testimony. A railway clerk named Otto Brandner. Brandner claimed he had seen Reichardt strike Weiss and flee. His statement contradicted every prior report. It would become the cornerstone of the case. A verdict before the questions. Observers in the gallery later wrote that the judges appeared to reach a decision long before the trial concluded. Reichardt's attorney requested additional time. The court refused. On January 28th, after only 3 weeks of testimony, the verdict was delivered. Guilty. Sentence: death by hanging. The execution date was set for February 5th. Reichardt was given 8 days. The night before dawn. On the evening of February 3rd, a confidential memorandum was delivered to the Bavarian Ministry of Justice. Its contents would not become public for 92 years. By the time Reichardt was led to the gallows, his fate had already been decided elsewhere. The witness who arrived too late. Otto Brandner's testimony became the spine of the prosecution's case, yet his appearance defied all standard procedure. Brandner had not been listed during the investigation. He had not been interviewed prior to trial. His statement had not been reviewed by the defense. Yet on January 10th, he was sworn in and allowed to testify. He claimed that on the evening of November 12th, he saw Reichardt strike Karl Weiss near the rail depot shortly after sunset. But there were problems. Railway records showed Brandner was working at another station at the time. Weather logs recorded heavy fog, making visual identification nearly impossible, and multiple witnesses placed Reichardt miles away. None of this was presented to the jury. The missing documents. Reichardt's attorney submitted 6 motions requesting access to police notes and internal correspondence. 5 were denied. 1 was lost. Years later, archivists would discover that the missing file contained a memorandum from the Munich police chief dated November 14th. Public unrest demands resolution. A conviction must be secured quickly. The memorandum had been marked confidential and removed from the case file. Private letters between officials revealed intense pressure from Berlin. The Kaiser's government was dealing with labor strikes in the Ruhr Valley and feared unrest spreading south. A high-profile murder in Munich threatened to ignite the press. The Reich Ministry of the Interior demanded closure. Reichardt was the solution, a defense without teeth. Reichardt's lawyer, Friedrich Koller, was systematically obstructed. Requests for forensic review were denied. Witnesses were excluded on procedural grounds. Time extensions were refused. The court ruled with unusual speed. Observers noted that verdict forms appeared prepared before closing arguments concluded. At dawn on February 5, 1896, Johann Reichardt was led into the prison courtyard. No family present, no public announcement. The execution was completed in 7 minutes. The official record listed the time of death as 6:14 a.m. By noon, his body had been buried in an unmarked grave. The city moved on.
But then,
in 1988, archivist Matthias Vogel was cataloging sealed judicial records in a storage facility outside Munich. He discovered a misfiled box labeled only with a number. Inside were documents from the Reichardt trial. Among them, the missing police memorandum, witness depositions never presented in court, and correspondence between Munich officials and Berlin. The case had been manufactured. The truth that was revealed 92 years late. The documents Matthias Vogel uncovered in 1988 were unambiguous. Witness statements had been altered. Evidence had been suppressed. Internal communications revealed direct political interference. Most damning of all was a letter from the Bavarian Ministry of Justice dated February 3, 1896. The same night, the confidential memorandum crossed the minister's desk. Proceed with sentence. Stability must be preserved. That letter was never entered into the official case file. When Vogel presented the findings to the Bavarian Historical Commission, officials were reluctant to proceed. The German legal system had long closed the case. But the documentation was overwhelming. In 1990, an internal review acknowledged that Reichardt's conviction had been procedurally compromised. The term wrongful execution was avoided. No formal apology was issued. Reichardt's grave remains unmarked. But why was no one held responsible? Every official involved was long dead. No surviving records linked individuals directly to the falsified testimony. The political climate of the 1890s was offered as explanation. History was satisfied with silence. Johann Reichardt entered the Bavarian justice system as an ordinary man. He left it as a problem to be solved. His name disappeared from textbooks. His trial vanished from legal history. But the documents remain, and they tell a quieter, darker truth. When institutions fear instability, justice becomes expendable. History is not only written by victors, it is curated by archivists, filtered by governments, and preserved by those who decide which boxes remain sealed. Sometimes, the most important stories are the ones that almost were not allowed to exist. The end.